Welcome to Goldfish on Games and Budget Game Reviews. Today's subject of a cheap review is this. The 4 Game Pack, which contains 4 games by Memir Software. Never heard of them? Well, you will by the end of this. And something else you probably wouldn't have heard of is the publisher, Music Bank. No idea who they are. But here we can see the 4 games that we're going to be checking out. Don't they look great? Now if we open it up, we get a bit of a surprise. As, yes, this is a PS2 box. I'm not entirely sure what happened to the original, as this is how I got it. So all I can imagine is that something went wrong with the original box, and well, you can't get cheaper than a PS2 box really. Now if we take a look on the inside label, we find that Music Bank have actually published quite a few other games. The only one here that I recognise is Sleepwalker. And that's mostly because I got it by accident when I was trying to get a copy of the Sleepwalker that I've reviewed previously. So, is this any good? Are any of those 4 games great? Let's find out! The first game we're going to check out is this one, Be Mazed. And yeah, pretty much all the menus are pretty similar. You don't tend to get all that much in the way of options. Sometimes you'll get credits, sometimes you'll get high scores or how to play, but none of them are particularly guaranteed. So you might have to work out how to play some of the games on your own. This game is relatively simple, so we're not really going to have much in the way of difficulty because, as we can see, it's a 3D version of Pac-Man, though it does have its own ideas. Such as when you collect the power pellet, it doesn't mean that you're instantly able to kill a baddie. You have to keep pushing them in to force them up and make them bigger before they finally explode. So you can actually be hurting them, and then it runs out and you die. The controls are not quite what you'd expect either, as you actually have far more freedom in the direction you move than you might expect. And because of that, it sometimes means that you don't quite line up with something that you thought you would do. Now I think it's quite obvious so far that your main goal in each level is to collect those tasties, those little cookie looking things on the floor. But there are quite a few things that are going to get in your way. Not all of them are instant deaths, like those boxes, they just get in your way and make life a lot harder. The levels do grow in complexity, particularly when they start to become full 3D, as your vision will be blocked by some of those blocks that are higher up. Now our little guy can't jump, so instead he has to use these fans to be able to move him up to a different level. You can also use the fans to get you around some of the other parts of the maps as well. It is also possible to fall off the side of the maps as well, so you really have to be very careful, which really wasn't helped by the controls that I mentioned earlier. Now there are quite a lot of levels, so there is actually a lot of content here for you to get through. Which is quite surprising when you actually look at the credits and you realise it was made by effectively just 2 people. Even if the credits themselves seem to go on as long as a modern day AAA title. The next title is Peng, which as we can see doesn't have quite as many options as the previous game. Do have a few themes for us to choose from, but there's not as many changes as you might expect. This is classic and does give you an idea of what you're going to be doing, which is shooting a lot of penguins. But don't worry, those are just snowballs, so it's all okay. That though might have been a bomb. Now initially, it's pretty brainless, you just keep shooting at the penguins while trying to also collect those ammo and bomb upgrades. But once you've reached the second round, these red penguins will start to show up, and they have jetpacks. And their goal is simple, to basically rocket into your face. So you have to try and take them out before they do that, because if they manage to headbutt you in the kisser, it's game over. And to be honest, this is pretty much most of the game. Now some of the other modes do have a few changes, such as the one that'll have a bunch of fish that you have to defend, as the penguins will try and push them off the level. Now for the most part, the blue ones will just randomly walk around, and if they happen to push it off, then fine, but it's not their main goal. The yellow ones, on the other hand, their goal is to try and push the fish off, so you have to try and take those guys down before anything else. At the end of each round, your fish will be topped up, so you can keep going. And to be honest, quite often you don't really need to do a lot to protect those fish. The last mode is obviously the hardest, as you have to try and protect the fish. You also need to watch out for those red ones that will fly into your face, but there's also extra ones that will try and take over those cannons and try and shoot you as well. So you need to try and hit them before they can hit you. So all in all, it's an original idea, though it's not one I'll probably come back to. The third game is Cyworld, and you can really see they're starting to up their production values here. There's actually a decent amount of options for you to change, and the cursor is even sparkly, just look at those special effects. And once we're in game, we actually find something that's very similar to Be Mazed. But this time, we've got a gun. Though it's not quite as simple as just shooting a baddie to take it out. Most of them have to be hit multiple times for them to reduce in size and then vanish. And once you've taken out all the enemies, then you go on to the next level. Now there's also that cache that you saw, and that's all to give you extra points. But this game is actually hiding another trick up its sleeve. That's right, we can go into first person, which definitely makes it a lot easier to be able to shoot and hit those baddies, as the aiming when it's top down is not particularly great, as you actually move around very similar to as you do in Be Mazed, in which you have far more freedom than you might expect, so trying to line up some of those shots can be a bit of a pain. Though thankfully you have unlimited ammo, so you can just hold the button down and just shoot at anything and just spray and pray and hope you get them. On top of all that, the game also has platforming. That's right, you have to try and jump over gaps as well as go upstairs, which can be a bit easier in the top-down view rather than the first person, so there are reasons to switch between the two views. Because the bullets have a bit of a random spread, you can actually hide behind some walls and still shoot over them. It doesn't always work, but you can clear out some rooms without having to go in and take them on face to face. And as you might imagine, if you touch a baddie, you lose a life, though you will just restart from where you are. If you fall out the level though, you'll actually have to start at the very beginning and take out all the baddies again, so it's a much harsher penalty if you fall out the level. As we can see, the levels do get more creative and a bit more difficult as you go on, particularly if you take on some of those later zones. Now some of the traps really don't make much sense in the top-down view. You only really work out what they are when you go into first person. Now one thing I found a little bit odd was that gun icon in the bottom left hand corner. As far as I'm aware, there is no upgrades or new weapons. You have that same unlimited ammo gun through the entirety of the game. Now obviously I didn't play the whole thing, but I did play quite a bit. So I don't know if they had planned additional weapons and never got round to it, or they felt they needed to have it there just to balance out the UI. And the final game in this pack is Blocks, which is a puzzle game, because everyone had to turn their hand at making a puzzle game. And this one has multiple different modes for you to play on. And in its original mode, you have what is effectively a 3D columns. You play the game by rotating the world around and then laying down blocks. Now there's four main types. You get the colours, you get the ones that spell out the word blocks, you get metal plates, and you get bombs. Now you get rid of the coloured blocks by placing different coloured ones on top of each other. And when you do that, it'll remove just those blocks and nothing else. If you get the BLOX blocks connected to each other in the right way, then it'll actually take out any other blocks that it's connected to as well, which is a great way of trying to reduce some of the larger clumps that you end up getting. Now the metal plates and the bombs are connected, as bombs can only go down on a metal plate, but metal plates can go down on anything else, so you have to use that to try and block off those bombs, because if a bomb touches any other block type, then it'll explode and it'll be pretty much game over. Now, as you might have guessed, you can't place unlimited boxes down in the world, as there's that box's left number in the top left hand corner. When that reaches 0, then it's game over. Now, there are a number of different modes in the game, such as being able to place 4 boxes down at the same time. But what I found more interesting was the puzzle mode, in which it'll give you a set world and you have to try and work out how to take care of all of the boxes that are there. And as we can see, it actually starts off quite simple. And it was through playing this mode that I actually realised there was more to the control scheme than I first realised, as you can actually use the WASD keys to move it left, right, up and down, so you didn't have to keep rotating around that central core all the time. And with that newfound knowledge, I actually found the main game a little bit easier than I first did, though it is still pretty hard to play. And interestingly, they actually added a competitive mode to the game, which you can play against a person or the AI. Now, annoyingly, you can't actually see what the AI is actually doing. I think that would have been nice to have that in the corner or something. So you have to sort of guess that you're beating them, based on the number of boxes they can still place on the screen, which you don't really want to look at while you're in the middle of your own game. And whether you win or lose, the game will end quite suddenly, and it's not until the results screen comes up that you really know if you've won. And I feel that might be a decent enough place to leave the Memir Software 4-pack. I do admire the fact that it is just 2 people and they actually tried so many different genres in these games. They're not all top quality or the best games you'll ever play, but they were quite fun. But I will say they really needed to have more than just 5 seconds worth of looping music for each game. It really does start to grate after a little while. So until next time, I've been the Goldfish, that was 4 very different titles, and this has been Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching this budget game review, I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you've got memories of this game, good or bad, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. And if you really enjoyed the video, then there's buttons below that you know what to do with. Or if you're not sure yet, then there's 2 other videos on screen that you can check out right now.